Hey kids, Flexing Teacher Weber here. Got another math video on you that sort of reviews some of the work we've done this week. This video will focus on starting with a decimal and converting to a percent and a fraction. So the first examples we'll look at will be more grade 7 kind of examples. So let's take a look at the first example, 18 hundredths. And we're going to change that to a percent first, and we've actually already been doing that. To write that as a percent, you multiply by 100 and add the percent symbol. So we've been doing that a lot already. So to do that, you take your decimal and you mentally multiply by 100. And 2 zeros on 100, shift the decimal 2 spots to the right. And that gives you a percent of 18%. That's something we've been doing already, so we'll continue to do that. The new part to this section is taking your decimal and writing it as a fraction. Now, a fraction has a numerator and a denominator. We'll start with the numerator first. To write as a fraction, the digits behind the decimal become the numerator. So if we focus in on this question, 18 hundredths, the digits behind the decimal are the 18. So that will be the numerator of our fraction, which is the top number, 18. So we get the numerator. Now to get the denominator, we look at the number of decimal places. The number of decimal places equals the number of zeros in the denominator. So in this particular example, there are 2 decimal places. There's a digit in the tenths and a digit in the hundredths. Tenths, hundredths. So that means if there's 2 decimal places, there's going to be 2 zeros in the denominator. 1, 2. And a 1 in front, and our fraction is 18 out of 100. Now with any fraction, we have to write that in lowest terms. So I want to try to think of the largest factors that will divide into 18 and 100. Now, today I gave the kids a factor sheet, which you'll see in the email, and that factor sheet will help them find numbers that divide into different numbers. And they're allowed to use that factor sheet on tests and assignments, so they have to make sure they do that. It's a golden sheet because it's worth the price of gold. The greatest common factor of 18 and 100 is 2. So I'm going to divide by 2, which means chop in half. And this fraction in lowest terms will be 9 over 50. And that's how we convert a decimal to a fraction. More of a grade 7 kind of example. Let's look at another grade 7 kind of example. We'll look at the decimal 48 hundredths. And we're going to convert that to a percent. So I take my decimal and I mentally multiply by 100. And no matter what the decimal is, multiplying by 100 shifts the decimal 2 behind the 8. And that's 48%. To get the fraction, numerator and denominator, the digits behind the decimal become the numerator. So there's 2 digits behind the decimal, the 4 and the 8. Those digits become the numerator of the fraction. To get the denominator, count the number of decimal places. I count 1, I count 2 decimal spots. So 2 decimal spots means 2 zeros in the denominator, 1, 2, and a 1. So 48 out of 100 is our fraction. Now, reducing to lowest terms, I want to find the largest number I can that will divide into 48 and 100. Now, if I can't find the largest number, any number will do. So some kids might go, okay, I know that I can divide 48 by 4 and 100 by 4. And the factor sheet I gave them today will help them with that. What do I multiply by 4 to get 48? Well, 12. What do I multiply by 4 to get 100? 25. So that fraction in lowest terms is 12 over 25. Now I also could have divided by 2 twice here, if that would have been easier, and I still would have gotten 12 over 25. Let's look at a grade 8 kind of example. Boom. So no matter, even though it's a grade 8 kind of example, it's still the exact same process. 32 10,000ths. Now to change that to a percent, I do the same thing. I take my decimal and I mentally multiply by 100. 2 zeros on 100 means shift the decimal 1, 2. And the decimal falls in front of the 3. And that's going to be 0.32% or 32 hundredths of a percent. Very small percentage. Now for the fraction, when I'm looking at the denominator, I can't take all the digits behind the decimal. There are 4 digits behind the decimal, 0032. So that's going to be the numerator of my fraction. The numerator will be 0032. However, these 2 zeros aren't really necessary, so I can just take them out. Now to get the denominator, I count the number of decimal places. I count 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 decimal places means 4 zeros in the denominator. And a 1 in front. So there's your fraction, 32 over 10,000. The hard part is maybe getting it in lowest terms. Since they're both even, try dividing by 2, which is chopping in half. That's 16 over 5,000. They're even again. That's 8 over 2,500. They're even again. That's 4 over 1,250. They're even again. And that's 2 over 625. And that's the tricky part, right? Kids got to be really quick with their dividing, especially if they're dividing by 2. They got to be able to chop in half. Tricky question, but the same pattern every time. Let's look at another one. Okay. Actually, you know what I'll do? I think we'll end it right there, and I'll do another video for the other ones. So that's the first half of this video on changing a decimal to a percent and a fraction. Hopefully that's helping a bit. Flexing Teacher Weber out.